Hey folks, this is Toli and welcome to some more game dev. Today we're going to be continuing with the same thing we've been doing every day for the past, I don't know, I guess it's only been a weekend, but it feels like it's been forever, but we're going to clean up the map editor. We've been going pretty crazy with like trying to figure out how to get walls to look good. Started on Friday and then it's just kind of continued a little bit. A lot of the off stream stuff even started with walls, I think. Maybe we did start it on Saturday. I don't know. I feel like it's been a whirlwind of trying to figure out how to get our system to handle these billboard props and whether or not we want to go with meshes or performance checking. It's been a whole thing. But we've kind of made a huge mess of things and we need to take, you know, we got to do our chores and we got to clean things up. So normally in the past few weeks, we've been starting with playing the builds on Monday and taking notes, creating work items and scheduling the week. I think we're just so deep in the weeds with the map editor. I just want to try and finish that up. And then depending on how that goes this morning, maybe we'll get a chance to play the build this afternoon. If not, if we're still kind of in it, the afternoon stream will be around making maps. But tomorrow we'll do the notes. I'll get into it then. I don't think we're going to make a demo by Sunday. I think there's still too much to do. I do have a ton of time this week with no interruptions to work on, you know, trying to get there, but I think the map editor maybe threw us a little bit off schedule. But it was also super valuable because it has been very helpful. Our world is in a bad state right now. Let me... One second. Okay, I'm going to close Unity. Yes, let's not save the scene. This is a bit risky. We're going to go for it. We're going to discard our changes to the scene. And we're going to reopen Unity and see if it's back to the way it was. So I kind of, again, I've left things in a bit of disarray, which you saw there with props everywhere. But I'm kind of trying some stuff to see if we can improve the prop editor to be a little bit stronger. I think using it for the last little bit here, Trixie and I have noticed that there are fundamental issues with the workflow. And so we want to try and resolve some of those before we go on to making all the maps, because we have a number of maps created but they're not populated with props right now, and as we start going through and actually, you know, adding a lot of the pieces, it would not be fun to go back and re-edit them all if the map editor, say, was completely different because I reworked it. Let's go here. All right, so if we come into the room and look at wall temp pass, the first thing we probably should do is there are a bunch more props that I worked with Trixie on yesterday evening to kind of fill out this space. I mean, a lot of them are her ideas, but we kind of played with a lot of stuff and kind of tried some different ideas, some of which are pretty creative. But first off, yeah, we shouldn't need to generate any final versions. We shouldn't have to parse any decals. So this should be just a matter of coming in here and just doing Demon Castle and creating all of the props we need from here. And then if we just come into scene view and if we hit populate, there are now 41 different props showing up here. None of our walls broke, it doesn't look like. If we save the scene and raycast the environment, let's just make sure that if we actually hit play, all of our walls are still coming in correctly. And then we're going to start playing around with kind of setting some different pieces up. There's also just a general like art pass we need to do. Ooh, we did break something. Is there a wall top piece? There is, but it does not have a proper tile offset anymore. Okay. And this is the type of stuff that I'm going to break before things get better. So if we go take a look at these assets in here, it does have a pixel height of 30. Ooh, but the decal facing is also off. Okay. I've been messing with this script a little bit, and we're kind of jumping into the stream with me half kind of reworking the whole thing. So it looks like there might be some issues. That might be fine. This does keep its pixel height, so where is it going wrong? I'm gonna guess that the game engine side of things, not the tool side, is broken. So we'll come into here. Decal custom prop offset. Yep. And this gets updated here with X, Y, and pixel height. Pixel height being the Z value in this situation, but I think I just saw that this is using, yeah, the Y value. Okay, so this is broken, but it's just because I'm passing the data wrong, but that's kind of because we're reformatting a lot of it. I'm going to leave it alone. I think mostly we're in a fine state. We're going to continue with the actual revamp of this prop tile. So what I'm working on is I'm making it so that if we come in here on like 512 and we hit add custom prop, it generates a new section of data for that. And it pre-allocates it with like this torch icon, basically the first one in the list. And if I change it back to clear, it deletes it. And so I'm trying to see if we can have a way where it's not just a series of predetermined like options that we can set here, but the ability to have a list and you can add multiples and potentially even change like the position of it or the height of it just from modifying some of these elements. So where was I? Before we started streaming, I had just started working on kind of setting up this for loop inside of the prop tile editor that's grabbing all the prop tiles and also getting the serialized prop that we're currently working with. And it's basically looping through each element of those and then both operating on the individual prop that we're currently looping through as well as the serialized properties. And essentially displaying each of these elements here, which is all of these. But in order to make this work the way I want it to, I'm having to recreate some of the functionality in a different way. So we had this idea before of a custom offset, which was originally a serialized vector. I changed it to a vector 2. I'm now going to get rid of it completely, and we're instead going to have a left and right depth value, which will essentially be our XY. And these single integers are going to be what we use. The reason we're doing this over the vector is simply that it gives me a little bit more control over each of the integer values. We're going to default all of this to 0 to start with. And then because we have these as integers, we can use a int slider to control them. Might have been able to find a way to do this with the vector still being the base component, but this just seems like a lot easier to me. And the reason I want these to be as sliders is I don't know what it is, but I imagine when we pull the prop left and right, back and forth, there's going to be like a full forward and a full back for where we want it positioned. So I want to be able to set the maximum so you can never place a asset outside of its given tile. We might want to make an override for that eventually, but for the time being, I think that's a pretty reasonable request to be like, hey, if you're going to put an asset from this 512 tile into this 513, you should just put it in 513 rather than anchoring it to 512, essentially. So next up, I think we can get rid of this one. And I want to do the left and right hookups now. So in here, these are values, but they're not doing anything at all. So we gonna want to get rid of custom offset pretty much entirely. And we're going to want to check to see if left depth does not equal left loaded depth. And this is just checking to see if the values have changed. And if they change, we should save that change into the loaded one. And we should do the same thing for right. Like so. And I suppose we could still use the loaded offset. Does this get used anywhere? No, it does not. So we could update the custom offset to be whatever the right and left is. Left will be X. Right will be Y. And these are just integer values. I'm going with left and right here partly because of our isometric view. So when I say left, I'm talking about this angle here. And when I say right, I'm talking about this angle here. So it's going to move it this way along this axis or along this axis. So the left axis starts on the front left of the tile. The right axis starts on the front right of the tile. And then goes to the back panels. I don't know. It makes sense to me. And I'll have to explain it to Drixie, but as long as we get used to it, it should be fine. Okay, so then if we clear this and then add a new prop here and then move it. Oh, that's literally doing the opposite of what I wanted. Okay. So then I think I have them flipped in here. Interesting. Really would have thought it would have been the other way around, but I guess I have no concept of... Yeah, I don't have a good idea of which way is left and right. We don't usually have to do this type of thing. Now, next problem. These are moving way too much. When we move this one unit, one movement unit is like basically one tile over. But we want to move this in units of pixels, essentially. I know through a lot of trial and error that our pixel alignment system says that 1 pixel with our settings is approximately 0.125. That feels like it's incorrect. Oh, you know what? I bet you there's an initial offset. Okay, we're going to try this though. So instead of using custom offset directly anymore here, we're going to times whatever that offset is by this value. I think there might be some sort of base level, because I'm pretty sure when we've dragged things around, it usually drags between... It moves at 0.1 is when it first snaps forward a pixel, not 0.12. So I bet you there's like an initial plus minus that we need to be adding. Like maybe we need to be adding a 0.02 or something as well with brackets and everything. Let's see what this does. Also, let's change this from the torch, which is a neat asset that Drixie whipped up real quick, and let's change it to the pillar, mostly because the pillar has a better setup. If we set this to 0, this should be on the ground. And I guess it is. Most of the time when we place our props, though, we don't... Let's go to this view. When we place our props, they're, like, right in the center, but a lot of our default stuff, when I say, like, center here, it's actually forward by a fair amount in the tile, just because that tends to look a little bit more centered overall. So that's fair. So if we then grab the sliders on this and bring it forward, so negative is towards the screen. Is that true here as well? No, negative is the other way here. We probably want this to feel different. So this coming towards the screen when I pull it towards the view feels right to me. I'm pulling it left and right. That's also way too many units. And then this feels like it should be at least on the same axis. So when I pull it towards me, it should be going the same way. So I think a simple fix there is we can just times the... Which one's wrong? The right depth? We times the right depth by -1 to flip its axes. So a negative value becomes a positive number. So pulling it this way also comes forward towards the screen. Okay, and then 50 is way too large. Let's drop down to maybe 5 points. On either side. It might be 4, honestly. We don't have a lot of room to move because there's actually not a lot of pixels. So that feels a little bit like it's crossed over into the next tile. Let's go all the way back. Yeah, that feels like it's crossing into that same plane. So this is now essentially this position and this position are the same. And I think I can test that by, if we add a prop to this one, make it a pillar. In fact, I think what I can do is this system is just looking at grabbing the first entry that isn't clear in the list. So if I just drag pillar up to the top, will that make it so that if I clear this and then change this, it does auto-populate to pillar. And then if I bring this all the way forward, oh, that actually goes ahead of it. Ooh, why are these swapping when we moved things in the editor? These ones did not. I guess it's because when we move these things in the editor here, it's reorganizing the list. And we're just lucky that the walls happen to be lower. Same with the goddess statue, I guess. But the pillar, anything that was above the pillar gets swapped. So dragging it is actually kind of dangerous. We might want to have instead like a default indice or something like that in here that we can set. And then we can change that to any element number. And then when we choose to add a new default prop, it just defaults to that entry. It's probably a better system rather than reorganizing the list, because our system doesn't know that we've reorganized it and can't go down through all the props and modify them. Regardless, if we change this from a fence back to a pillar here, and we change it forward to 4. Ooh, they are not overlapping. 3 is where they overlap. Okay. So the full extent of the 413 tile is -5 right now. And the full extent of 512... 3 would be getting to the same position. So I think that means that if we go to 4 on each of these, that is the full dimension. Essentially, we can go 8 pixels to the left and 8 pixels to the right. Actually, that makes a lot of sense because a lot of our walls, like these things here, I'm pretty sure are 16 pixels wide. No, I don't know if that math makes sense. Okay, let's click here. So this one can go to 4, as far back as it wants. And this one can go to -4, but that kind of overlaps them. So maybe -4 can be as far front as we want, but maybe we want to have the maximum be 3. Yeah, that might make more sense. So that they never overlap. Okay. We'll let -4 be the max so that we can come forward. We can let a prop come very far forward on its tile. But we'll make it so -3 is as far back as it can go, so you can't accidentally overlap 2 props. You can get them very close to each other, but you can't overlap them. Now what if we want to go side to side? So what if we did a 0 here? Actually, I want to see 0 on this one, and then maximum to the right. And then if we go to 412, choose a pillar here, and then we go -4 this way. Do they overlap on this side? Not quite, but close. Oh, I guess we never actually validated whether or not... So we've determined that this is probably the range that we want to be moving at, is probably these like 8 pixels. -4 to 0 is 5 pixels, and then 1, 2, 3, 8. So this range of 8 is probably where we want to be. But we need to validate that okay, what we need to do is we need to check to make sure that every time we move this, the asset moves. So we're going to turn off 412, and we're just going to have one pillar here, make it much simpler to see. And then we're going to just check to make sure that every unit here actually moves it. So if we change this to 1, it moved. 2, it moved. 3, it moved. Okay. And then -1, moving, 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 moving. Good. Coming forward. That seems fine. It is moving every time we change one of these, and it should be moving exactly 1 pixel at a time. So if we look down here, times 4, and just look at like the base, every time we click it over by 1 amount, it should be moving 1 pixel to the right. That looks like 2 pixels to me. We can validate that really quickly by checking to see if we do 0.625, if that value still causes it to move every single time we click. Not exactly the same. So -4 to -3, there's no movement. -2 still feels like that's moving 2 pixels there. And then is something warping with the image itself? Maybe it's a trick of the eye, but I feel like the image is changing. Yes, down here. Ooh. This should never distort when we modify it. That should be part of the magic of the pixel editor. Oh, but we're not going to see it unless we're running. Right, so my pixel alignment system... Well, no, should it be operating? Let's take a look at Visual Studio. When we call update, we set tile offset and we set the position. We're kind of doing this one because we're saying it's a custom. It should be calling late update on the pixel alignment system. So this should be rounding it to the nearest value. Oh, internally this has 0.625. But here we have 1.25. Interesting. It shouldn't matter though, because as long as the pixel alignment system is set up, it shouldn't be shifting any pixels. But we haven't done a lot of like this level of like very precise movement. Is it moving? Yes. Right here on the base, you can see that these pixels here shift when I move it back and forth on this axis. Let's go back to only moving it by these numbers and see if it's still doing any kind of pixel shifting as we move it back and forth. It is. Interesting. Now, this could be because we're not moving it live, and it could still be a problem with the pixel editor because we're calling update on it one time, but technically when we are running the game, this is called every single frame. So then the next step we have to do is there's still more editor work we have to do in terms of the custom editor to get it so that we can like manipulate these values and have more control. Like the facing isn't doing anything right now, and also I want to set up like presets and there to be more than just billboard as the type. We should have the ability to make custom prop walls and custom prop decals. But I'm gonna start trying to get the importing in to the actual engine because we need to see this running live. So this new system basically says that we have a list of prop loaders. And when we hit add a prop loader, it's adding a new entry to this list. Excuse me. And then it does a bunch of math and things, or updating functionality. But I think really all we need to do is inside of the generate level data from WorldGeo. In here we create all of the different prop addressable IDs. I think tile data similar also needs its own list of prop loaders in here. And it's possible the default ones get added to this list eventually, which would make things easier. Now I'm going to need to transfer some data. So what am I going to need to send down? At the final level at a tile, each of these essentially take just a scale, a rotation, and an offset. Every different variation of whether it's a decal or a left or right wall or one of these props that's basically just got its offset being aligned, we're just modifying these three values. So essentially we just need a list of the ID that we're going to load, and then the parameters we want to set on that loaded prop. So let's make a prop loader data, which has those entries in it. And this will be props. Now, how do we take this data in? Probably still as a serialized vector, but we're going to need 3 of them. We're going to need a offset. We're going to need a, let's do rotation. Now, rotation is kind of predetermined to be in 4 cardinal directions, and we've been using the direction enum for that, so that probably doesn't need to be a vector. The scale... The scale is currently being determined by whether it's a wall, a decal, or the default parameters for a billboard. So I think the other piece of data we need besides offset isn't actually scale. We need the proptile.proploader.proptype, which is a thing I've just created recently, and it only has billboard, but it's going to want to have wall and decal. Decal being basically a floor or ceiling piece that's aligned with the actual like bottom. It's like laid flat. A wall is something that is not facing the camera. Billboards are facing the camera. So a wall essentially just sits upright in a tile. And then depending on what type of prop it is, that's going to determine what type of scale we're going to give it so that it looks pixel perfect. Yes. So that is the data we need to have in order to create a prop from our editor window stuff into the actual game. So here, we're going to loop through each prop tile, and we are also going to not only do this other stuff, but also do tile.props.add, and we're going to need to loop through each prop tile props. Oh, we're not. We accidentally auto-corrected to the class. Prop loaders. And then for every one of these prop loaders, we're going to want to add a new prop loader data. Which maybe it can have a constructor that just takes a prop loader. There's also a situation where we might want to like make it so that there's actually a data inside of this class that's getting updated. Does that make sense? So that we just have a data inside of here. And instead of having public values for its prop type, its direction, and its custom offset, we just directly modify them inside of the prop loader data. That way we can just pass a reference. And then we don't have to construct anything here. We just literally do loader.data. I don't know. I'm not sure which is better. This is all happening at tool time. Like, it's not happening at runtime, so it doesn't really matter how efficient I am. I think probably just making a constructor makes more sense for tools, because we might want to elaborate or change some of how we construct this data, and we may not want the prop tile to have to adhere to whatever that format is. So we'll have this take a prop tile, and then inside of here we're going to set the addressable ID to be whatever the addressable of the prop tile was. addressable. Oh, sorry, not a prop tile. This needs to take a prop loader. Which I built that class inside of it, which is maybe a little weird. Probably should separate those at some point. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. Okay, direction can be created directly. The offset probably is fine to just directly grab custom offset, because this should be created every single frame. This is a serialized vector. This is a vector2 int. I do want to convert it, because otherwise the vectors are a little hard to work with. Custom offset.y, and then we'll just pass in 0 for the z. That's not true. We should actually be passing in the height here. Pixel height. And then lastly, we need the prop type, which should also be a one-to-one grab. Okay, so now when we generate all the data, we're going to go through all of the custom added loaders. We're going to add a prop data. And then from here inside the tile, we're essentially going to do the same thing we would do for one of the kind of hand-built ones, which does make me feel like we can probably put all of the data for each of the individual ones in here as well. Prop loader data, prop loader data, in tile data dot props data, and we're going to load this not on the tile data but on its internal addressable ID. We're going to still increase the count, or reduce the count. Are we increasing the count somewhere? Yes, as part of loading the prop, we increase it. Okay. So load prop is increasing the load count. We need to make sure that we decrease the load count. And then if the object is equal to null, we're just going to leave. Otherwise, we're going to get the tile offset off of the object that got created. And then we're going to update its scale based off of its type. I think this might be handled here. I was thinking about where we put the case statement, but I think because this is essentially handling the different types, yeah, I don't like that. The fact that we have to go 3 levels deep to find this entry. This is something I normally don't do, but I was moving pretty fast and breaking a lot of stuff. If I try and pull it out now, am I going to break all of my design data? All of the mono behavior stuff could become a problem as the references break. I'm going to accept my fate. This is not something that's going to really break me long term. I think I wish I had have done it a little bit differently, but and now would be the time to fix it, because as we start building a ton of levels, we really don't want to be messing with this data. But this doesn't, I don't know if this has any kind of performance impact. Again, because I never do this, I'm not entirely sure whether or not having to go multiple references deep to find the entry has any kind of impact. This should all get like taken care of by the assembler, I would expect. We are not going to set any scale if it's a billboard. If it is a wall, we're going to set a scale with these random numbers, which seem to make things line up perfectly. And then we're going to I guess we can just do this. Then we're also going to grab the tile, which is going to be this. And that is a decal. Okay, that's setting the scale. We're going to make a new type of set rotation, which is going to take the prop type and the direction. And then we're going to set the rotation here. We're going to need to do this differently per each one of these, and specifically for the wall and the decal, they will have their own setup. For a wall, we have to add 90. No, for a decal, we have to add 90 because we need to flip it to be flat. And then I believe for a wall, we don't need to do that step. Right now, we're just setting the directions here. I think we can change that to use the north, south, east, west stuff. Why is that not the same? Direction dot to quaternion. This should be the same one. I feel like there's some sort of issue there. It's using the wrong version, that's why. Okay, now we can do the same thing, but we just don't need to add the 90 on the X custom. And then we will never set a rotation for a billboard. Okay, and then the offset comes in as X, Y, and height. So that should be fine. So now when we loop through this data, we're going to pass into the scale. We're going to pass the prop data. Like that. We're going to pass the type For the rotation, we're going to pass the type and the prop data direction. And then here for the offset, we're going to set the offset here using these parameters, and this is now going to use offset.z. as the height parameter. Okay, in theory, that should work. We should be now porting this information for these custom added props down into the game, and when we hit play, it should load it. So first off, we're going to raycast, we're going to save, and then this pillar, which was built via custom data, should appear in the game. Now, well, it's recognizing it as a wall. In fact, we have stopped moving entirely. Oh, okay, well, I was messing with some editor stuff from sequences to try and figure out how to do something for this, and I think I left some bad code inside of this reveal cutscene. Yeah, I did. Because I was just trying to see how we normally do vectors, but I ended up going in a different direction. This still should have appeared immediately. Yeah, okay. I just broke because of the room reveal sequence. Interesting. Well, let's go through and figure out what's going on. Let's go here. Let's debug, attach debugger. Enable. Okay, and then if we raycast the environment, we do get in here. Okay, that's a good sign. Prop loader data, it sees it as a pillar. It has some custom offset values associated with it. That seems good. So then let's go to the tile next, and let's see what happens when we try and load it. So we'll run the game. Maybe we got like the offsets wrong or something, or the scale. It is a custom billboard. We did not hit anything here. Interesting. Oh. No, it's serializable. All of these should be serializable as well. If we're never getting inside this breakpoint, that means it never finds a tile data with prop data associated with it. But we see that we're adding one here. When we generate the level data. Super odd. Unless it's crashing there and I didn't notice. It is crashing there and I didn't notice. Okay. Fair enough. Well, that's because this needs to be initialized, which we can do here, because every time we do this, we should reset all the information anyways. So just at the top of the loop, reset the data before we start adding, or set the data, initialize it. There's the words. Oh, and now we have to actually raycast. Okay, raycast. No errors that time. Now does the pillar appear? Yes, it does. Perfect. Okay. Right. I guess if we want to edit it... I may have been dumb that whole time. If we want to edit it, we don't need to actually run it in-game, because we can't position it in-game. If we want to edit it, we just need to hit play while this is outside of the room. Then if we go scene view... Okay. Okay, this is fine. Let's go like this. Overhead, ISO, looking at 512. Let's change the board to no load on props, so that we don't have a pillar loading into the game, which is literally what we just tried to achieve, but now it's in the way because I realized that was a silly thing to do. And now with us in like live mode with these being editable, now we can check to see whether or not these pixels are still changing, and they are. Huge burn. Huge burn. Oh! It's shadowing. There's a slight amount of shadow on the ground here because of the fact that these tiles are... You can see it better here. Letting light come through the lattice structure because the angle of the camera and the angle of the light aren't the same. So we get kind of this like kind of shadowish effect from the walls, and I think that's what we're seeing on the base of the pillar here. So if we pull the pillar back to somewhere like 614, add a new custom prop that's working at runtime, that's good. And then if we bring this all the way forward, I don't see any movement on the pixels anymore now. Yeah, it's a little weird on the eyes, but that is maintaining pixel precision. Does that mean that we see a little bit of shadows at... Yeah, we do see a little bit of shadows here when we're not in play mode. It's just more obvious to see it against the... Or it was more obvious to my eye to see it against the brick texture than it was to see it against the green texture. Yeah, and it wasn't anywhere else that we were seeing any pixel shifting. It was only on the base, which is where those shadows were affecting it. Okay. Okay, cool. So then let's go back, because the whole reason we went down this rabbit hole, which was good, we needed to hook up the loading into the game anyways. We were setting it up so... We wanted to decide on what this value was. So if we come back into here, we were timesing this by 12.25. If we do this, I imagine this won't work because we know that the pixel snapping is 1.25. So if we make it any lower than the pixel snapping, why would it show up? Let's add this one here again. Oh, I got my numbers way off. Okay, let's try this again. So I'm just curious if we can get any more like in between kind of states here. So we choose this one, add a custom pillar, and then if we bring it forward, yeah, it's basically every other pixel that it moves. We probably just want to go with 1.25 then. I actually kind of feel like I would rather have this one come more forward than have it go further back. So I might make another adjustment on these numbers just with playing with it a bit. I'm going to change it so -5 is the most forward we can go and 2 is as far back as we can go. We're still working within the same 8 pixel range. And then, yeah, let's set this back to where it was at 125. And I think that's going to be a better representation. This feels pretty powerful though. It seems like we can just add a prop, we can fully move it. Next step is going to be setting up the walls and the decals to be fully customizable, but I think this is all the data we would need for a custom or a billboard, I guess more accurately. I think it's also very likely we never want to go to the full extreme. On a lot of these. But I think we want to have the flexibility that in some cases we can. Here we're starting to clip into the wall, which is a different problem that I may not solve at this time, but I realized that even when the tiles slide in, some of these tiles move up a little bit. So if we grab this one and we drag it up, drag the whole thing up, really? We gonna be like that? Which one am I selecting then? Oh, they're not attached because I turned off props and this is loading here. Anyways, if I drag this up, I realize that like it starts to clip through, and because our tiles bounce as they reveal in, we are going to have some issues with wall tiles clipping into billboard tiles. This doesn't really happen when you have billboards in front of billboards because they're both at the same like rotation to face the camera, so they don't clip into each other even when they're moving up and down. Or at least it's much more difficult for it to happen. But this might just be that we can't have really tall objects next to walls. So like these pillars are like 60 high, which is some of our tallest. We might have to have some sort of limit. This probably is more of a design constraint than something that we're going to actually code fix. Also, I kind of like this. It's weird on this one, but unrelated to what we're doing now, but I realized we can actually do this effect, which is kind of cool, or even potentially interesting, we can do this, which gives some very neat ideas for like secret passages for sure. I don't know, I think that's pretty neat. If we're going to do stuff like that, though, we're probably going to want to be able to parent some of these props together. Because right now each one is individual, and we're moving the whole tile right now because it's under this like prototype editor version, but eventually it all gets parented underneath of like the floor holder. So we might want to have like some sort of system so that when we load these, we actually give them a slightly different parent. That shouldn't affect any of the editor stuff or the data entry that we're doing. That's more down at this level, like when we do prop addressables. We call load on it. We give it the floor model as the parent. We might want to come up with another thing under the tile for like the prop parent that we can parent these two. That way we can move all of them together. And then if we need more data entries for like, I would like to add this to this specific floor parent of like movable floor parent or something like that, we can get into that later. But just thought that was cool and I wanted to show it for a second. Right, so this is now editable via the left and right depth values. If we were to clear this one, oh, it didn't delete it. Oh, that's an interesting bug. Whoa, okay. It should have cleared that. Is that because it was already in existence when we hit load? Yeah. No, that wouldn't even make sense because we... Not sure why that didn't delete. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. Let's try a tile that's a little further forward, but still isn't in the shadows. I just want to continue playing with this, just to make sure this is working as I intend. We can zoom in ×4, mostly just trying to look at each individual pixel, make sure there's no weird snapping. All the pixel snapping stuff still looks good. Sometimes the eye gets very confused when the pixels move, but they're actually still pixel perfect. It's just like our brain is kind of upset to see the things move. Mainly talking about, at least for me personally, here this feels like the pixels are shifting. But I think it's because we're moving 2 pixels at a time. Some of it's also the blue dots disappearing. Partly because this pixel in right here is very similar color to the floor. And so when it moves over top of this blue pixel, my brain isn't reading that as covering it, but as the blue pixel disappearing. That's kind of odd. Yeah, in motion it looks a bit blurry, but it is maintaining its form. Okay, so we now have the ability to move a prop fully around and find the exact spot we wanted on a tile where we would like it to load in, which gives us the ability to make some really interesting kind of layouts. But we also do need to be conscious of like never exiting too far out of a tile, because otherwise it'll look like it's like clipping into the player. In fact, we still might want to limit some of these more. No, that looks okay. We do get a little bit of the feet showing underneath, but that's because of like the natural like angle of this. This has 0.1 on its offset now, right? Oh, it has a height of 1. That was 813. Oh, interesting. I had not noticed that it was 1 pixel high. I don't think that changes our default parameters here too much. Like, that still works. The character isn't clipping into it at all. Just gonna come around the other side. Yeah, that doesn't feel like we're clipping into it either. Does it look like we're standing on it? No, it just looks like our foot's in front of it. Okay, so that seems fine. Let's go back to, like, I don't know, maybe an extreme version over here. Yeah, that still just looks like we're walking around the front of it. There's no clipping there. Let's try the extreme version over here. That just looks like we step behind it. That looks like we're stepping through it. Oh, but that's because I'm stepping onto its tile. Still a little weird. That does bring up the interesting point of, like, does this look okay? Like, can we put it in the center between a couple of different tiles and be off-grid, essentially? Yeah, I think that's fine. The character does pop in front of it at some point, I think, but that doesn't look bad. Okay, so we can have, like, off-center pieces with this as well, which is neat and handy. We ran out of time. All right, let's move on. So that's billboards. We can simplify that a bit too. Let's work on the preset system because that'll help with that. So right now we have a chosen layer, and the layer determines essentially our preset. We've already made the prop types. And so our presets are custom, front, center, back, left wall, right wall, and decal. Yeah, that seems fine. So if our layer equals prop layer custom, then I think we should be allowed to see the prop type, the direction, the pixel height, left and right. All of this stuff should be visible. Else, well, maybe this is actually a switch statement. Oh my goodness. If custom, do all this stuff. I think if we are of type wall, whether it's left or right, I think we should still be allowed to change our pixel height manually, but all other values should be based off of the preset of wall. No, we should be able to change our left and right as well. But I don't think we're allowed to change our prop type, because we're going to be a wall at that point. And we should be able to change our direction. I think this can be simplified down, but let's just keep working through it. If it's a decal, I don't think we can... No, we do need to be able to change our facing and rotate the prop as well. And we do need to be able to change the pixel height, but we shouldn't need to change our left-right, I don't think. And then if we are a front... back... or center, which I believe is the last types we have. Custom, front, center, back, left, right, and decal. Yeah, so that's all our types. If we are back, center, or front, that's going to be setting our offset for us. I think we might still want to be able to change our height, potentially, if we want to have like a floating prop, but I don't think we want to be able to change anything else. So no matter what, pixel height is shown. So pixel height can be removed from all of these because it is always shown no matter what state we're in. Which means that we no longer need any cases for this version. Direction index is shown for all of these. Prop type is only shown if custom. Can we do some fall-through case statements? I know some people hate these, but I think we can get away with getting rid of this, this, and this. Oh, I don't remember how to do this. But I do feel like there is some shared logic here. So direction index should be able to do that. I cannot remember offhand how to do this. Please stand by. Please stand by. Please stand by. Let's see. Case, fall through, Unity. This answer from relatively recently says that I should be using GoTo. I've never done this before, but that is valid. I don't like that though. That looks weird. Oh, because I'm used to C. And C++ is what I'm thinking of, which I haven't used in like 10, 15 years. But my brain is defaulting to fall through. Sorry, parsing information. It looks like the GoTo would be the way to do it. This looks to be the syntax. Alright, fine. Okay, let's give this a shot. I've never used this syntax before and it feels odd to me, but... And if we do it this way, then we should get direction by falling all the way through to the bottom, and we should get left and right depth by falling through to wall. and then everything will have pixel height. All right, let's see if that works. So if we add a prop here, because it's custom, we get everything. If we go front, we only get pixel height. If we go center, we only get pixel height. Back, we only get pixel height. Left wall, we get depth, facing, and pixel height. Right, we get depth, facing, and pixel height. If we do decal, we just get facing and pixel height. If we go back to custom, we get all the options, including the ability to choose wall or decal. So then the question becomes, why do we want to do custom? What does custom get us? Basically, if we choose front, center, or back, we can think about it as auto-choosing wall is what I'm going to set up, or sorry, billboard. And if we choose left wall or right wall, it will auto-choose wall for us. Oh, I see. Okay, the reason I was thinking I want a custom is because left wall and right wall should also default the positions of these to be very specific. So I don't want you to have control over the indices in this situation. And I don't want you to have control over the facing, but you control the pixel height. And then if you want to have a wall that you want to be able to control these, you would go custom, choose wall, and then put in custom values for this. Okay. So that means in here, these should only happen here. I think this is what I actually want. Let's see, so if we come into here, we choose left wall. No, because we don't even want the facing here. So we only want pixel height for left wall, right wall. Because left wall, right wall presets are literally going to choose its facing and its position. But if we go into custom, we can make it a wall and then choose all those values. And then front and center makes sense as well because we can only choose their pixel height here and their position will be defaulted. But if we go custom, we want to see this information. Now, we're never going to be able to change the facing on a billboard. That's just not a thing we can do. So we should also have an additional check for inside of custom. We need to do something different. Okay, so we do get rid of the fall through here. And we want to have a if the property type does not equal billboard, then we can show the direction. Didn't like that. Oh, now I need a break in here as well. Cool. So then, if we choose custom, get this information. Custom billboard shows no direction, but if we choose wall or decal, we do get direction. So then the last question is, do we want to reorder these at all? I can see a case for direction appearing right after this dropdown. Okay. I think that is the properties showing up the way I want them to. Next problem. We need to update the prop tile based off of those selections being made. So we currently have a prop tile and a layer. We need to have a loaded version of each of these. I am starting to think, whenever I see this much copy and pasting, like this concept of like having two versions of every property, a loaded and a non-loaded variation. It does make me feel like there's maybe some optimization to be done or reduction. Okay, for now though, we'll hide this data. And then if on update, if loaded layer, which is our preset, does not equal the current layer, we should update some data based off of the preset changing. First off, we're going to set the loaded layer to be whatever we have so that we don't keep getting into this if statement. Then we're going to update some parameters based off of what case we're in. So if we are in let's see, how do we want to do this? If the layer is custom, I think we're fine. We could default everything back to 0, 0, but I think we're okay leaving it with whatever it was last set as. Then let's do back, center, front. If it is any one of these ones, we want to do what do we want to do? We want to set the pixel, no, the depth, the left depth to something and the right depth to something, and this is actually going to be different per each layer. If it's center, we're going to do 0, 0 for the positioning. I don't know what back and front are going to be. They were custom edited, but I'm going to guess front is a 3. And ooh, center is actually 2 points forward. So center is actually 2, 2, it looks like. And then because this doesn't have a second value, this is going to be 3, 3. And then back is -4, which the best we can do now is 3 for that variation. And 0 on this depth. I think these values might be backwards. We're going to try that. Okay, so as we change the preset to back, center, or front, we're going to update these values. We're also going to default the height to 0 for each one of these. Well, no, because this is editable. at all times. So we should leave the height whatever the last height was and not overwrite it. Okay, and then direction doesn't need to be updated because we never use direction. So I think this might be all we have to do. Can we test that? Okay. Scenes. Let's go in here, and if we add a new custom and we set its preset to front, that moves it there. If we set it to back, that moves it over there, which is not quite right. And then center is center. Okay. So let's add a billboard to back. I want to see how close we are to it. If we then add a back entry. Oh, maybe that is actually pretty close. I think they might be identical. Let's remove our prop, or maybe just move it back to center. Not identical. Interesting. Shoot. Okay, so if we want to be able to do that, we need to change the limiter back. So this should now be 4 and 3. Unless we have a different value for left and right. I did like those parameters we had solved for, or found, more accurately. Yeah, now it can perfectly overlap. So the right depth can go to 3 if we want to match the exact same position as the old back. But that means that we can't come as far forward either. Maybe that's fine. It just kind of changes where we put some of these pieces. The other option is we just go like 9 pixels difference on either one. So that we can choose to go further back if we so choose. We could go -4 and 4, and then you could have overlapping props, but it's up to you to decide not to do that. Drixie redeeming the stretch and giving a sprinkle cookie. Appreciate you. You're right, I should stand. Let's mute for a second. We'll be right back. The desk has been raised. We are now standing. All right. Thank you for the stretch redemption. Cool. So I don't know. I maybe we change these values, but I think I do want to try and emulate the original setup as much as possible. So we will let this go to 3. So we'll go -4 to 3 as our kind of range on a tile for how far a prop on a tile can go back and forth. And then if we do that, that allows us to have it so the default back position can be 3 here. And I think that's what we said. Let's double check that. 3 depth with 0 on the left should line up perfectly with the old billboard. Ooh, not quite exactly the same, but I think they are identical in terms of, like, the positions might be slightly off, but pixel perfect wise, they are in the exact same spot. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll go with that. So those are the default values for back, center, and front. Next up, we've got left wall, which, ooh, that's a good question. What is the depth for left and right walls? They are whole number 0.5. They don't actually fit into these dimensions then? I had not considered that because we are always timesing by the pixel amount right now, which I thought would be smart. Just gonna make sure. What would 0.5 divided by 5 points? Yeah, 1.1. Wait, so then 0.125 times 4. Oh, that still works. I was like, wait a second. Math brain activate. Something feels wrong here. So if we just do a depth of 4, which in this case it'll be -4 because we're coming forward to the screen. So as long as we do a depth of -4, we should be able to re-achieve the original offsets. And it looks like left wall was -0.5 and right wall was 0.5 on the X. So left wall should be 4, because we know that times is out to be the same thing. And then right wall will be the opposite. So this will be 4 and 0. And then additionally, we're going to need to set the directions. I don't know what left and right walls directions are supposed to be. 0 and -90. If we do direction to quaternion, 0 is north, and -90 would be the same as west. So north and west should be their positions. And left wall should be north. Direction.north. And then this one should be direction.west. And that should get them into their default spots. And then for a decal, we need to set their left and right depths both to be 0, so they're perfectly centered in the tile. And then the direction can be variable, so we do not get to set that. We did make that, right? We made it so direction is modifiable for the decal, but it's the only thing other than custom that gets to do that. Okay. We don't change scale at all. That's all determined by the typing. Oh, which is the other thing we need to do. So depending on which type we are, we need to update the prop type depending on our preset. So these ones are billboards. I knew there was something about scale we were missing, and it's because we need to set the prop type. This one is going to be a wall. And this one is going to be a decal. Okay, so now when we change the preset, which is the layer, which is a bad name, and maybe I should just do that rename now. Preset. This becomes preset. Because the layer is what it was before, but it's really now kind of changed form. And then we're going to have to change the string names inside of the editor window as well. So in here, we're going to also have to update it to be preset. Any other reference to layer? No. So that should be good then. That will break any props we've made, but again, we haven't really made any custom props with the system yet. Just trying to get it up and running. So if we come in here, click on like 912, add a custom prop that's a pillar. If we change this to be a left wall, it'll flatten it that way. If we change it to a right wall, it'll flatten it that way. That's working perfectly. Decal will flatten it to the floor, which completely breaks, but you wouldn't use this prop in this way. Although you could. That's the flexibility of the system. And then if we change the pixel height here, that goes up and down. If we change the directionality, that should be doing something. I think it is. Let's try it with a real floor piece. So let's do wall top. And if we change this to north. Ooh, did we get a error? I don't think that error should have affected us, but let's try again. Let's try again. Because it looked like the north-south stuff wasn't changing. We should have been changing the direction value, and that should have been different from the loaded direction. And if its preset is decal, it should reload it with a new quaternion for that direction. This does need to get updated as well. Instead of loading and then using the preset data, it should do something similar to how the tile is operating now, where it just takes a series of different pieces and passes that in. In fact, I think it should just be this blanket, and there shouldn't be any need for a case statement at all. Prop type, direction, offset, offset, offset. This becomes pixel height in this one. And I guess we're using custom offset here. We could use the exact values, but that's fine. Yeah, this will be more realistic. It's kind of weird to be in the middle of fixing a bug and then like change the kind of core system logic, but I feel like this will give us a better representation of whether or not things are working. So if we go scene view, ten 1013. Where's this prop? 813? Yeah, if we remove this, does it clear? It does. So I still don't know why it didn't delete itself that one time. Ooh, all of our walls inverted. Interesting. Messed something up there. Okay, let's start by looking at the decal. Adding a custom prop. Adding a decal. This is changing its height. That is not changing its facing. Oh. Yeah, and the walls are in the wrong spots now. That implies we gave them the wrong quaternion information. So that means we got north and west confused. So let's try south and east. Weird. That's why? Because technically the rotation doesn't matter because it's going to flip itself either way. So those need to be -4s. I think we worked that out. I just missed it when I was punching in the data. Yeah, okay, that fixed all the walls. Good. Let's add a new one just to make sure that also these custom prop ones are working. So we can go left wall, and we can go right wall, and that moves correctly. And then if we go decal, that does snap it to the floor. Let's change it to be one that we can actually visibly see well. Let's move it up so that it's a little easier to see off the ground. And then south, west, east. None of that seems to be changing the facing. Shouldn't need to be part of the preset. It should just be able to see that the direction has changed. Okay, let's figure out what's going on. Unless we messed up something inside of the loading, which would be here for set rotation. Ooh, not hitting any breakpoints. Which means that the direction versus loaded direction is not different. Oh. Yep, this is something I did right before starting streaming, like 2 hours ago, and I totally forgot about this. So I had changed it up, so instead of using the direction directly for that drop down, we're using an index value, mostly so that we can update the direction options to, instead of showing all the options in the enum, which technically includes north, south, northeast, northwest, southwest, and southeast, additional to the 4 cardinal directions. I wanted it to only show 4 options because the other ones don't do anything in the system, so why show things to a user when they're not valid options? But I did not update this to work with it. So instead of having a loaded direction that is an enum, we should have a loaded direction index. Because here's the direction index. Now we're going to need a loaded direction index, which can be hide and inspector. And then if the direction index has changed from the loaded direction index, set this. I feel like there's some sort of class that could be made here, which is like a has value changed class, but I don't know if it would really change that much. It would just be encapsulating some of this logic, which is relatively straightforward. And then I think in here we also just want to update direction to equal north, south, east, or west, depending on the index. Now when we save that index, no, it won't be in the same coordinate system as this, so we will need to write a converter. Get direction. Because the enum is what we want to update so that we use the actual enum internally, but from the UI standpoint, we're actually using an integer. This will give out a direction. get direction. I'm just going to take an int value. Actually, it doesn't even need to do that because it's all public variables. So then we're going to case switch. I don't know why my brain keeps trying to use case statement as the start of this for some reason today. Okay, so this is going to be case 0 and then break. And then we're going to have 1, 2, and 3. And then we just need to figure out which one is which. Oh, and we don't need these break statements because we're going to be returning in each one. In here, so it's north, south, west, east. So return direction north, south, east, west, depending on its index. And by default, if somehow we're outside of that, we will return north, which is our default. Sure. So just a broken link in the editor to data kind of front of things. So now if we change this to south, it updates. It all updates correctly. Cool. So then if we go back to left wall, which we should change this to an actual wall piece. That works. If we go to custom, then we should be able to move this wall to wherever we want in the area. Cool. Also neat. Then we should be able to change its facing. And that's funny. Changing it east-west, it's flipping it, its facing around, but because it's a sprite, it kind of just flips it. Which is some handy tech that, like, I think Trixie had been asking for. The ability to flip some of these billboard sprites. I mean, it doesn't work on the billboards. I don't think. Yeah, because we don't let you do that. But maybe we should? Does that work on the billboard as well? If we were to just let it be? We need to add a little bit extra logic, I just realized. It does not do anything. But it doesn't do anything because technically we've programmed it to not do anything. Because in set rotation, we don't do anything on billboard. What if we did? What if we did? Would that work as kind of a cheap flip? And if so, maybe it's a different UI. It uses the same thing internally, but we just make it like a left-right. Well, a bunch of our walls broke, which is interesting. And that's because the indexes need to be defaulted as well. Let's fix that before I lose that thought. So inside of here, we're only changing the direction north, south, west, but we actually should be changing the direction index because that's what's going to actually get updating. So this is west, so that's going to be 3. And this is north, so this should be 0. That's not going to fix it, though. It might, actually. Yeah, it does. Okay. Okay, where was I? I wanted to not lose that thought, but now I may have lost what we were doing a second ago. I think we were trying... Oh yeah, we wanted to see if we made a billboard. Its scale is getting set. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's why we don't modify the rotation. Because the billboards that we normally load in have a set rotation to begin with. So we can't just do the same rotation on it with the set offset system. Because if we do that, we break it. This is still doable. It's just more annoying. So yeah, if we grab this and take a look at this pillar, it has a 30, -45 to kind of get it lined up perfectly with the camera. So if we wanted to rotate locally around that axis and rotate it all the way to the other side, it looks like it would be a -30, 0 probably, and -20, 220. The question then becomes, is this a perfect mirror of one placed here? So we're going to do center as well, pillars, 60. This becomes a fun game. Are these identical, but just flipped? No. Right here, there's a little bit of light pixelation, and there's like a little up on the dark, but the dark does not connect. Here, the dark is fully connected. So it is being modified in some way. This is a good asset for this, actually. So this one here has 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 1, 2 gap, single dark line, 2. Oh, actually you can see it here. It's being stretched this way, and this one's cleaved as well. Okay, so then if we want to find the exact rotation for this, -225. It looked like that snapped into place a little bit. Would that make sense? What was the original values? 45 and 30? I can't think of why that would be like that. So this is a straight line right up into here where it has a 2 pixel gap, then a single, then it kind of has a nice straight edge here, nice straight edge here. This all looks like it's matching. That all looks like it's matching. This is 2 pixels, 2 pixels it looks like. Yep. And then it has this little T section That little T section. Okay. That seems good. I'm trying to think if there's another way to test this, but it looks like -30, -25 might be the flip. And so we would then have the system set the billboard's rotation, and then if we do like a north-south kind of as the two different options, we could flip textures just by rotating them. Okay. Let's write it down. So in here, instead of direction to quaternion, I think we would need to have some sort of different setup. This is going to be annoying. If the prop type is billboard, we're going to do if direction equals direction dot north. We're going to do whatever the normal was, which I will double check in a moment. Else, we're going to do new vector 3. Is the vector 3 this? No, it takes 3 values. It's nicer than that. So we can just give it -30.0f, -225.0f, and 0 rotation on the Z. Meanwhile, if it has a direction of north, which is our kind of our normal, which is funny that that worked out that way. North for normal. If we come into here and then give this one a front pillar, our normal default values are 30, -45. 30.0f, -35. $45. And that should perfectly face the camera. Come on. Load Unity, I believe in you. Alright, let's give that a shot. What could possibly go wrong? Wow, we're almost out of time again. This stuff is time consuming. So yeah, if you choose anything but north, it flips it. And I'll go through with a fine-tooth comb and Aseprite and check every single pixel later to validate that that is a perfect rotation and that we're not losing any kind of geometry. But for now, we'll assume those are close numbers. Last thing we'll do, and then we're going to take a break for lunch, is we're going to come into here and we're going to bring back this if statement, but we're going to add an else case that if it's a billboard, essentially, instead of displaying the words as facing, we're going to display it as flipped. And then we're going to need a new set of options. So instead of a string of directional options, we'll do a new list of strings, which I guess I could have done that up here as well. The prop options are dynamic, but because these aren't, this can be normal and flipped. And we probably could do the same thing with directions. North, south, west, east. I think I got these backwards. Yeah, west, east. No, that's what I got. Okay, we're good. Yeah, because these are set, we don't need to dynamically create them every time. I don't believe. We can test that by just simply commenting this out. Okay. And now for a custom billboard pillar, this should say flipped or normal. And then for a wall, this will say south or west. Ooh, that's a good reason maybe to make it its own index value that's not related to the direction. Because if we change it to like a wall and make it something lower in that list, and then go back to billboard, it's just empty. Or we just fix that when we switch back to billboard, which I think we need to do something there too. So right now we're only checking when you change presets, but we should probably also do some sort of check if loaded prop type is different. If the prop type changes, what do we need to update? Like, nothing's modifying here. What would need to modify? I guess the core engine would need to be updated. Like, if we change this, it should probably be doing a reload of the object because the prop type's going to affect the scale and the rotation. Sure. I'm not sure what else we'd need to modify right now, so we'll just go with that. I feel like there was something else I had on the tip of my tongue that should be updating when we change the typing. Interesting. Billboard doesn't update. Is that because the... Is that because the scale or rotation we set up is wrong? If we change this to front, that does work. If we change it to wall, it snaps that way. If we change it to decal, it snaps the floor. But if we change it back to billboard, nothing happens. But if we change it back to front... Oh, it proceeds to not continue to work. Okay. Oh, but there it did? That works. That works. That works. That's okay. That's okay. Oh, that didn't change the facing, though. That should have changed the direction. It did not. Interesting. There's still some bugs here, but I'll poke at those over lunch and see if we can clean those up. Oh, we also caused... Oh, these walls are broken again too. Okay, so there's something just broken with right walls again. Okay, a couple of bugs, but I think we're close. What's going on here with these decals? Okay, maybe more than a couple of bugs. I don't think we're getting to a build review today, which is what I figured. I think we're going to come back and we're going to continue at 2 on cleaning this up, but I don't think we're far off now. Most of the core functionality is there. It's just some of the drop downs aren't quite working the way I would like them to. So we're going to come back after lunch at 2, and I think we're going to put we're going to finish this up if I haven't done it over lunch. And we're going to move on to actually trying to put some props in here. Haven't really had a chance to dig into it at all, but Drixie did make a bunch of props, so I think we're down to actually start decorating the spaces. I'm pretty happy with the way this has come together. I might want to refactor the kind of these props to also be driven under the new list-based system, just for the way the data is transferred. But besides that, I think it's mostly good to start trying to come in with some other stuff. So we've got like these like tables and chairs. So if we bring in like something like that, that's like just a little herb. That's not really a chair. Where are all the chairs? Oh, some of those were A-Sprite files. So we may not have. Yeah, some of these need potentially another pass. I might need to export some of the new ones as PNGs. We've got like some sun rays. And we've got some walls to go with that. Not the one I'm looking for. Window. Got a window that we can try putting in. I don't know. There's a bunch of props we're going to play with, but I'm going to take a break for lunch, come back in about an hour. We will hopefully clean up the rest of these bugs around the prop editor, and then we're going to start trying to actually decorate some maps and build out kind of the Demon Lord's castle finally, which I've been trying to do for 3 days. For now, though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.